welcome to the Light Gate. This is Monday night. It is the last night in the year 2024 that you will be seeing us, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the UPRN Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Facebook, we are on Roku, we are on Rumble, we are on YouTube, and oh my goodness, we have a lot going on tonight, and I'm going to be as quick as I can. I want to thank our sponsor for our show is Carnation. We love you, Carnation. I drink coffee constantly, and that's where it goes. I love it. I also cook with that stuff. You are helping us, and we love you for it. Preston, we have one of the best guests that I, in my lifetime, that I've ever wanted to meet, and I'm excited about this, so I'm going to hand it over to you right now. Let's go.
All right, and I'll be quick with the introductions, I promise, because I do want to get to our guest. Thank you guys for joining us. Episode 88 of The Light Gate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Saffron. She's the subject of my book, Symmetry, Had a Lifetime of Contact. I'll go to our guest tonight in just a quick sec. I do want to say hi to you guys. It's because of you we do this show. Happy New Year's. Hope you had a great Christmas. And we got quite a nice crowd in here today. I'm very excited to see you all. Many familiar names here. We have Teresa Levine. Thank you for joining us. And we have Sunny Burnett. And Fab. Hope you're doing well, Fab. Salut to you as well. Kaleidoscope Eyes from Knoxville, Tennessee. You guys are so nice to join us each and every Monday. Tim Houston. Good morning. Oh, are you in another country?
You must be in Australia. Yeah. Okay.
And we got the Owl Man. We have the Bears and Ruth Kleiber. Blind Psychonaut. We have Tomorrow Kiddo.
Nice to meet you.
From Australia.
Yep.
Very nice. And Louise from New Jersey, Dronesville. Hope the drones are leaving you alone, or maybe you're seeing some right now. Okay, namaste. Can't tell you how much we love you, but we're going to try. We love you. We really do. Your support means so much. It tremendously helps us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So beautiful to see you here each Monday. We love you up, down, and sideways. Thank you. And hi to everyone in chat, she says. Jaude Batista da Silva.
Wow.
Very cool. We have Tim Houston. Namaste. Well done, you. Yes. Thank you. Again, namaste. We have John Schaefer's. We have Z Sun Dragon. We have Bob Thorson. Bob, thank you. Means a lot. Hope you're doing really well. Happy New Year's. Thank you so much. Endless gratitude and love to you. Love to all of you guys. Blessings, love and light. Preston Dolly from Riverside, from Olivia. Fab. Aviation expert. Should be fun and interesting. Oh, yes. He knows a lot.
This is a big deal. Yes.
Yep, as is. We have Blue Peacocks. CT Guitar Guy has a question already. I'll put a star up for you.
Yep.
We have Poetic Poems. We have Walking Trees. We have Flea Market Gold. Hello again, all. We have Becky Duncan sending love from Virginia. And Octopus with No Friends. President Dolly are my friends.
Yes.
we love you, Octopus with No Friends.
Absolutely. We are your friends.
214. Happy holidays. Janie Mashburn.
Janie.
Oh, my favorite too. Sorry, I'm getting through this quick because I really want to get to our guest.
Yes.
LL from Massachusetts.
Hello.
We have Abraham all the way from London, UK. Very cool. CT Guitar Guy says hi. We got a lot of people here. Fun Talks TV. We have Belcher. We have Cosmic Zen. Love and positivity to Preston and my girl, Dolly. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm going to just jump into the show here, you guys. I could say hi to you forever. We just know that we love all of you. Homero, thanks for joining us. Space. Louise has not seen any orbs. Except
good.
Towards McGuire. Okay.
No.
All right. Oh, and Polly. Huge hugs. Right back at you, Polly. Catherine Four Feathers. Okay.
Hi, Catherine.
Now.
Yes, hey.
We do have some, and I mean, our guest tonight is amazing. And I could go on and on and on with his resume. I shortened it for you, but we can certainly ask him all about his amazing life. Our guest tonight, of course, is James C. Goodall. We're going to be talking about UFOs, advanced aircraft, skunk works, the UFO cover-up. All is on the table. James is really accomplished. He's a published author with more than 27, or at least 27 books in print. He is the former docent at Kitt Peak National Observatory, the former Associate Curator at Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, former restoration manager on the MoFs deHavilland Comet Mk 4C at the Museum of Flight. I'm really not even sure what that is. and and a former master sergeant, wow, at the United States Air Force. Studied business marketing at the University of Minnesota and is a recognized authority, and that's putting it lightly, both on low-observable aircraft such as the F-117, B-2A, the Lockheed Twins, F-22 and F-35, and the Lockheed Skunk Works family of Blackbirds, and the U.S. Navy's fleet of modern-day fast attack and ballistic missile submarines. He has been photographing and writing about spooky, we'll put that in quotes, spooky military aircraft, naval ships, and submarines for the past 35 years. His last book, 75 Years of the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Let me try that again. His last book, 75 Years of the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, was published by Osprey in 2021. And I'm just going to show you a few of his books real quickly because he's got a lot of them, and I just want to make sure you guys do have a chance to see these covers. SR-71 Pilot's Manual. And let me see what else do we have here. America's Stealth Fighters and Bombers. Fast Attack Submarines. Some really amazing books, you guys. Here's the one that's recent. Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. Nautilus to Columbia. Skunk Works. But before I get too into it, let's just bring on our guest because he is the one who is the authority. James,
hey,
if I may.
I'm delighted to be here. And I guess my love has always been airplanes. You briefly touched on who I was and where I came from. I grew up in the middle of Silicon Valley. It was when I grew up in the Mountain View, Los Altos area of the San Francisco Peninsula. It was known for fruits and nuts, not the two-legged kind like they are today, but the type that grew in trees and shrubs and bushes.
Okay.
My dad was a professor at Stanford, postgraduate engineering.
Wow.
He was also director of engineering for a number of different high-tech companies back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. My dad had a IQ of about 175. So I grew up in that environment. So being stupid did not cut it at all. and I'm blessed. I got some of my mom's and some of my dad's intelligence and my mom's sense of humor. She was, it all started when I was about 5 years old. Now I'm going to be 80 in 3 months.
Holy
wow! Congratulations. That's awesome.
I don't feel it. I drive a Corvette. That's my daily driver. I've had it up to 145. I rode Harleys for 50 years. I don't anymore. But when I was 5 years old, we were living in San Jose down the peninsula. And this is when it was a small little town, not where it is today.
Yep,
and I had already gone to bed, but it was still light out. My dad came into the bedroom and I said, I don't know what's coming, but you got to see it. So we went outside and over the coast mountains heading to Travis were not one, not two, but 24 Convair B-36 10-engine strategic bombers. For a long time, I thought it was 18. And when I was at the Museum of Flight at the Restoration Center, there was a gentleman there. Yeah, he said, I was a flight engineer in B-36s. So I told him my story of being the first airplanes I remember seeing. He said, I was in that formation. I was in the lead B-36, and there weren't 18. And I'm thinking, well, maybe there was only 10. He said, no, there were 24.
Huh.
There had 37 of them or 38 of them at Guam as a show of power to the Chinese and the North Koreans. This is like 51. the beginning of the Korean
Korean
War.
War. Yeah.
And when they left Guam, they flew down through the Straits of Formosa on the way, and nonstop from there they're heading to Travis. And they were at about 2,500, maybe 3,000 feet as they came over the house. And the whole town vibrated.
Yeah.
That much. And they called it the magnesium overcast.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was my first introduction into machines, and I've loved planes, trains, and automobiles and machines ever since. And then when I was about 10 years old, my best friends, we moved up to Mountain View, Los Altos area. My best friend's dad was commander at Moffett Field Naval Air Station, and we were always referred to as Captain Smith's son and that friend of his. And that friend of his had a bunch of quotes on it, and a lot of sarcasm thrown towards it. So Danny and I had to run to a place. We hid in plain sight. We were around so much in the hangars. We didn't go on the flight line, and we didn't go out on the runway, but we were everywhere else. That no one even noticed us.
Yeah.
And I got a call one Saturday morning. It was Danny. He said, "You do anything today?" And I said, "No." I said, "Well, jump on your bike and come over to Moffett. I'll meet you at the gate." So it's about 3 miles away. So I jumped on my bicycle and off I went and meet at the gate. We went.
How old are you at this point?
11. Yeah. And so at the time, Moffett Field had about 400 airplanes. I mean, it was huge. And he said, "There's something cool in the big hangar," which was Hangar 1. And so we rode our bicycles over there. We went right down the middle of the hangar to the far end, closest to the bay. And there was an area that was cordoned off with black curtains. They just said, "Keep out." There was no guard. There was nothing to indicate that there was anything special behind it. So we parked our bikes. Danny opens up the curtain. We go in, and I'm looking at the prototype XF-104 Starfighter.
Oh.
And I bet wet my pants. I mean, this thing, the world hadn't seen it yet. And
my God.
It had the 7-foot wings that were real sharp edge. It was you couldn't cut yourself on it, but it was a relatively sharp edge. So
Wow.
Danny says, I dare you to get in the cockpit. And I sort of hesitated a little bit. Then he said the equivalent of what they said on A Christmas Story. "I double dog dare you." I got in the cockpit, closed the canopy. Danny latched it, or I latched it. I'm not sure which one. I'm in there for about 2 minutes, and I'm just sitting there going zoom, zoom, having a good time. Then I think to myself, I'm sitting on an ejection seat. I don't know what to touch.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
don't flip anything out and pull a lever. No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I go to unlatch the canopy, and it won't budge. Danny's moving it. It won't budge. Oh, geez. So he had to run and go get shore patrol, some Navy guys and some Lockheed guys to come in and get me out of the cockpit. And
you were supposed to be there.
that was almost 70 years ago, and my butt
there
still
were
hurts.
guards after that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of my passion for Skunk Works airplanes.
Okay.
So fast forward, it's now March 10th, 1964. I'm in the Air Force. I was stationed in Denver. I was a communications specialist. And I was on temporary duty. They call it TDY. I was TDY to Edwards Air Force Base to support 3 programs for ground-based telemetry for Category 1 testing. It was the Lockheed YC-141 Starlifter, the North American XB-70 Valkyrie, a Mach 3 bomber. I never did see that fly. And a classified program, which turned out to be the Blackbird. And I had worked a lot of overtime because we were putting in all this ground-based stuff for Category 1 testing, and that's envelope expansion, going as fast and as high as you can, everything else. Yeah. And I had worked so much overtime that they were going to give me in the Air Force or the military, if you work overtime, because you're being paid 24 hours a day, 12 cents an hour or whatever it worked out to. And if you worked overtime, you didn't get paid overtime, but you got comp time for overtime. So I had like almost a whole week of vacation sort of off. So it was a Tuesday afternoon. It's March 10th. It's 1964. It's about 3:15 in the afternoon. I'm waiting for the shuttle plane that flew from Edwards to Hawthorne, which is in LA. And the headquarters of Northrop was at Hawthorne. The same buildings are now owned and operated by SpaceX, just as a whatever. So I hear this roar and I see debris being blown halfway across Rogers Dry Lake, and so I decided to hit me. I hadn't started loading yet, and it's a twin-engine Italian job. It's a Piaggio. It was a pusher, props on it. Holds, I think, 12 people total. So I went running down the flight line and I looked towards the XB-70 test pad. And first I thought it was the X-15 rocket, rocket plane, but the people were too small.
Right.
And all of a sudden they said, "Hey, we're loading." So I ran back up, and there's the window, a seat, aisle, seat, window. So everybody has a window seat. So we took off and we headed right down the taxiway, full power, and across Rogers Dry Lake, and we took off and we bank, and I'm looking straight down on the top of a 105-foot long, 58-foot wide wingspan Blackbird. And they'd already shut it down. I'm 18 years old and I joined the Air Force.
Oh my God.
It was just before I turned 19. I joined the Air Force because I wanted to be around airplanes. Well, that is an airplane, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at, and that literally changed my life for the rest of my life. So I was gone all that week. I got back to I took a shuttle, I hitchhiked. I got into Lancaster, and then I managed to get a bus going into the base. Because Edwards, back in 1964, even today, it's from the main road to the front gate is 18 miles. And then you have another 8 or 10 miles to get into the base. So you're a long way from nowhere. 64 was even farther away. Yeah. So I got back on that Sunday night. Monday morning, I'm at the section. They give my work orders, and they're for the Lockheed hangar. And here's this 18-year-old kid who loves airplanes. He walks into the back. I'm looking at the back end of 2 Lockheed Blackbirds. They were the YF-12 interceptors. And I just stood there and just looked at them, and they're dripping fuel. So that was the beginning of my passion, my obsession with all things Skunk Works began actually when I was about 11. It was amplified times a million in March 10th, 1964. And 60 some odd years later, that passion is still as strong today as it was back then.
My goodness.
So, now, at this point, had you heard of UFOs, or had you ever seen one?
Oh no, I was aware of Roswell as a kid. I remember seeing War of the Worlds in 1953, and even today, when you look at me, you can see the wires holding the flying saucer and a hook. But for the time, that was an incredible movie, and it is. I would love to see him using the same type of characters and the same models, but do it with high tech and see what you got. Wow. So I have loved things that go bump in the night, spooky airplanes forever and ever. I have been at the fence line at Area 51 and at Tonopah Test Range on over 80 different occasions. I've had little red dots on my chest. I have been told to get out. You're in a restricted area. I mean, one of the funniest things, and because of my love affair with things that go bump in the night, and UFOs. Again, from a real young age, I became friends with some of the best known characters in the UFO community. One of my dearest friends, we lost you 2 years ago. It was John Lear.
Yeah.
And I met him through John Andrews from Testers. He's the one who came out with the Bob Lazar sports model. And I had met John before at a International Plastic Modeler Society convention. I built model airplanes as a kid. Go figure, And so John was working on a model for the Blackbird, and he's not getting anywhere with Lockheed or not getting anywhere with the Air Force. And he's talking to a friend of his at the Air Force Museum, where they did have a YF-12, which I saw fly way back when, named Dave Menard. And Dave was an old crotchety old master sergeant, and I ended up as a crusty old master sergeant as well. But he said, well, if you want to know anything about the Blackbird, get hold of this guy named Goodall. So he did, and we instantly became best of friends.
Wow.
So because of John Andrews, I met Bob Lazar, not Bob Lazar, John Lear.
John Lear, right.
And because of John Lear, I met Bob Lazar. And the way I met him is I was on November 11th, the Air Force announced the existence of the B-2.
Yes.
And on the 22nd, it was the F-117, or vice versa. I should know, but I don't. Both dates. So I called up Lear. This is late December of '88, and I said, "Hey, they just announced the existence of the F-117." I said, "Let's go up and see if we can see it fly." So I was living in Minnesota, and I flew out there. The following day, we jumped in a rent a car. We went over to Lear's, picked up John. We're going up US 95. We're about 2/3 of the way to the town of Tonopah. We're just past Scotty's Junction, and Scotty's Junction is sort of a point everybody knows where it's at, because it was a legal house of ill repute that the federal government took over.
Oh, wow.
And they ran it out of business. They took it over for a tax lien, but they literally ran it into the ground. I don't know how you can do that, because the product doesn't spoil. Well, sometimes it does. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. So we're about 15, 20 miles north of Scotty's Junction, going up US 95, and an F-117 flew about 1,500 feet off the ground and about crashed the car. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Oh my God, that would have freaked me out. Yeah.
So we got into the town of Tonopah. We went to the station house, had a bite to eat, and then headed north on 95. You get in the middle of town, and US 6 heads due east. You get on that, you go 14 miles, and you see this out in the middle of nowhere. You see this big, huge sign that said Tonopah Test Range. It has a B-43 nuclear weapon on top, and that's the road. That's 18-mile south until and there's nothing there but open range until you hit the gate at Tonopah Test Range. So as being in the military and being retired military, I had an ID that would get me on any military base except for those that are the ones that are in restricted areas, which is Tonopah Test Range. Wow. So we just drove along the fence line, and now this is before digital cameras. So I'm up there. I have a Pentax. I have my Nikon. I'm shooting Kodacolor 100. I have Nikon lenses. I have my 70 to 200 zoom. And I look to the north, and I see a black fuzzy dot with a light next to it, and then a little smaller bluish yellowish dot with a light underneath it. So I figured that's a 117 and a chase plane.
Right.
So as it's coming up, as it's filling up in my viewfinder, all of a sudden, I only have 36 exposures. So it's filling up my viewfinder, and I'm like a 10-year-old boy seeing a naked woman for the very first time. There it is.
Yeah. Oh
That's,
my
that,
God.
that's a Nike Ajax booster, and they would see how they flew.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting, I'm literally vibrating. I don't know if it was 60 hertz or whatever, but I was, and I didn't know if I was going to have everything good. So I'm scratching the top of my head. So everything's still.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you so good. Your mic.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yes. Well, not just well.
No.
I don't know
No.
what happened.
You're
There
very-
you go. Yeah.
If you can hear me, just put your thumb
Yeah,
up.
we're good. Okay.
So where was I? Oh, crumb.
The booster.
I forgot where I was.
Right after that.
So
You were vibrating 60
I
hertz.
shot the roll of film, and I don't know why I'm not getting your voice.
Can you hear us?
No. So oh, shit. I hate this.
Can you hear me now?
I'm vibrating. So I finished, roll up. We head back. We're heading to Las Vegas.
Okay.
I have. I'm going to be going to a photomat. You have to have no hair or white hair to know what a photomat is. Us in a shopping center,
Right.
and but I know they're not open late, so we don't get back to Lear's house till about after 9 o'clock at night. And then John said, "Hey, I have a new friend. He's just moved here from Albuquerque. He's waiting for his Q clearance to be upgraded because he has a job out in the desert. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he has a job out in the desert, and he'll be here in just a bit." And about 10 minutes after we arrived, there was a knock at the front door, and John went and got him and brought this young man in, and very soft-spoken, nice-looking kid, and he introduces himself as Bob Lazar. So, there he is in his lab at his home, and we've been friends for 35 years.
Wow.
So we jump in there. He said, "Well, I have a processing unit at home. It's a C-41 processing unit. Let's head to my place. I live on the other side of town off of West Charleston." So we jump in his car, and we're about a block out of Lear's place, and he looks at me and he says, "I feel sorry for that dumb SOB Lear." I said, "Why's that?" I said, "Because the idiot believes in UFOs." He says, I'm a physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, it doesn't exist. Said, "You couldn't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs were real."
Wow.
This is Bob Lazar, the guy that came out from the dark to say that he worked at a place called S4. So that's the beginning of my friendship with Bob.
Amazing.
And I don't know why I can't hear you guys.
Well, see if you
My
can.
audio's working.
You can't hear us?
Everything's working.
I'm not sure how to fix that, Dolly. If you can't hear us.
The symbol for unplug, replug.
Yeah.
Can you
I
hear us
don't know
now?
why I'm not. I don't know if my.
You want to give him a call?
Yes, I'm doing that right now.
I'm going to need to take about a 2-minute break. I'm going to see if I can find another pair of headphones. All
All
right.
right. That's fine.
We'll tell you what. Oh. I just hung up on you, Preston. I can.
We've reached the voicemail of Jim Goodall.
That was Dolly.
Yeah, I can hear. My headphones must have died.
Okay.
So I'm just on regular speaker.
That works. I hear you really well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's how I met Bob Lazar, and because of that, I have met so many other people in this strange and unusual community Now, all the times I've been out in the desert, and as much as I love spooky stuff and things that go bump in the night, I have never, ever seen a UFO. To my knowledge, I have never been abducted. I mean, I'm out, we have a lot of sightings here in the greater Tucson area. The area I live in has no street lights. So at night it is dark, and you can see oh shit, my mind just went blank.
Arizona is mostly owned by the federal government, and ETs really stay out of those areas unless there's something that they're paying attention to. It's mostly government back engineered stuff flying over there, or stuff that they've been working top secret. Nevada, same way. And people don't realize that a lot of stuff that people have believed to be UFOs are not. They are ours. And
I have a friend of mine who is in deep, dark. He's not part of the programs, but he supports real spooky programs.
Yeah.
And he said 90% of what people are seeing are not alien spacecraft.
Correct.
They
90%,
are.
Wow.
They are ours.
Correct. But ETs are not about invading our airspaces. That isn't how they operate. They're watchful. That's it. And they only watch when we're doing stupid stuff, and they'll show up for that, and then they get out real fast. Yeah. They mostly have gone to states where people are away from government places, sometimes near bases, but they don't. They stay out in Nevada and Arizona and California a lot, actually, because there is a huge, there's a huge ton of stuff going on out there. People from Atlanta, Georgia used to tell me all the time, I'm seeing UFOs. And I'm like, you understand that Lockheed Dobbins is out here. Okay. And, you have to understand what's going on there. And they don't get it. They think they're seeing them. They weren't. And Atlanta's supposedly a huge UFO area, but it's not. It's stuff,
Yeah. But I'm out there every night and I'm looking. I have my binoculars out there. They're always at on my table. I go out there with my dog at night.
They're not.
I'm literally sometimes I'll get one of the lounge chairs by the pool and I'll just go and just.
You're not, James. You're not going to see them now. They're not here. They haven't been around our solar system for about 2 years now, and it's.
I've been doing this for most of my life.
Yeah, I can't believe you've never seen one.
No, I've seen weird stuff fly, but then I realized what it was.
Yeah.
The first time you saw an F-117, a head-on shot, it looks like a UFO. It looks like a flying saucer.
It does. Right.
And because it's faceted as it was, and again, I've been in that fence line many, many times now.
Yeah.
And as it's coming in, if the sun's real low, the change in light on the faceted fuselage changes everything. I mean, makes it look like it's changing shape, which I know it wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had people will say, well, alien technology was used on the Blackbird and stuff like that. And I said, no, I've taken apart 2 Blackbirds. I've helped restore 3 Blackbirds. I've been over every square inch. Right. I have cut the wings off of an airplane. I have put them back together. I've restored the cockpit. I've been into every open bay and every panel that can come off. It's a titanium and plastic piece of equipment that can hold 1 or 2 guys and it weighs 35 to 40 tons and moves through the air at about 32 to 3,400 feet per second.
Right.
And that's using technology that was developed in 1956 to 1958.
Yep.
I mean, the J-58, the motor that powers the Blackbird to Mach 3.
Yeah.
It was developed for the Navy. It was a generic engine. Kelly liked the numbers it had as far as all the different ratios and
right.
There's my favorite airplane. Well, that's actually my second favorite. My number 1 favorite is the CIA version, which is the A-12.
Yeah.
And that's only a single place, and it actually flew higher and a wee bit faster.
Right.
But the top speed's limited by the inlet compressor temperature. And what's really amazing, and again, I've been over every square inch of that airplane, so I know it fairly well.
People confuse the fact that ETs don't use rocket engineering on their craft.
No, they don't. I mean, if it's anything, it should be electric or electromagnetic.
Electromagnetic, yes.
Yeah.
Electricity is the operative word with ETs. And we're very innovative, intelligent people, and we've got rocketry you can't even imagine. I mean, look at the R-22. Oh my, that's a big deal, that one. And it's like a prototype for what they're trying to fly into space with right now. It's amazing what we've come up with on our own, Yeah.
So, I mean, we have just, made, so many inroads as far as what we do. But our solar system and our galaxy is only 4 billion years old, and now they're saying every time they think they have an answer, the James Webb Space Telescope says no, that's not.
Yeah, they're wrong about the 4 billion too. It's 286 billion years old.
They keep pushing it out. I know the first images to come off of the James Webb were a 4 galaxy grouping,
right?
That was at least 1 billion light years past that 13.4 billion years.
Yeah. They're rethinking a lot. Yeah, they used to be real big on the Big Bang, and a lot of years ago, I kept saying that didn't happen. It's bigger than you think, and it is infinite. And so now they finally got it. This is not there's no end to this place. It regenerates itself. Black holes are not singularities. They do shoot energy out of them. They're just now starting to be able to see that happening. And there's no such thing as dark matter. They used to push that like crazy. They're still trying to come up with an explanation why they can't see dark space. And it's optics. It's what we can physically see, and what optics we've developed has nothing to do with what's really out there. And it drives me crazy when they absolutely state theories as facts. It drives me crazy. Don't do it. You're wrong.
I mean, up at Kitt Peak, they took the Mayall's telescope, which when it was built, when it saw first light in 1972, there was only one telescope that had a bigger primary mirror, and that was Palomar. That had a 200-inch. Yeah. And it's a 4-meter, 30,000-pound chunk of optical quartz. Yep. And they spent. Last year I was up at Kitt Peak. They spent that year modifying they took out the secondary mirror, and they put a 5,000 optical lenses up there that are adjustable.
Right.
Because, and the sister telescope, which was built at the same time by the same people down in Chile, they're going to take the Mayall telescope and the one down in Chile, and we're going to look at the northern sky, and they're going to catalog the spectrographic signatures of 40 million galaxies.
It's a little teeny number of them too. We're really out there. I know.
And they're going to do the same thing in the southern hemisphere, and they're going to try to identify. They know dark matter exists. They don't, or dark energy, one of the two.
But they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. That is a failed theory, and they keep trying to prove it, and they're absolutely wrong. And I can tell you why. Frequency, we only physically see a certain area of frequency, and they haven't got the technology to blow their optics out to receive signal outside of our optical range or what our technology will allow them to see. The minute they get past that, they will see that it is not dark matter. It is pure light out there, and it is very bright. And we can't physically see it yet. That's what's wrong with this right now. They won't wake up to that. ET's been trying to teach them that too, and they won't listen.
Well, I had to quit being a docent up at Kitt Peak because I have bad knees.
Yeah.
And the visitor center's down in the lower area, so if you're going up to Mayo, you have to go up. And if you're going to the 2.1 meter or the McMaster Pierce solar telescope, it's all up. It's all uphill, up and downhill. So it's tearing my knees apart. Oh. But just before I left, there was a professor. He's one of the top guys at National Science Foundation. He'd just returned from a worldwide conference on exoplanets. And he said, based, and again, this is 2016. So we're looking at almost, we're looking at 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he had just returned from a worldwide conference on exoplanets. And I don't care who you were, if you were looking at exoplanets, you were at this conference. They said using proven mathematical formulas, they calculate that, and this is pre-James Webb, so we're going to be limited to 13.4 billion years. And it said that based on proven mathematical formulas, they calculate that for every star in the universe, there's 1.5 planets. And out of that incredible number, they calculate, again based on proven mathematical formulas, that there are 2 billion, that's with a B, 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar size brown dwarf star as our sun in the inhabitable zone with liquid water.
Yep.
And to quote Jodie Foster's character in
Contact.
It's in our galaxy. Yeah. In this particular galaxy. You got to signal that one out.
No, that was for the universe.
Oh, well, it's more than that. Yeah.
I'm sure it keeps expanding.
Right.
But to quote Jodie Foster's character in the movie Contact, if we're the only ones, what a waste of space.
Exactly.
And some other famous astronomers say this within the last year, and I should have written down his name. I'm terrible with names. He said that we have, how the hell did he put it? He said, what is more frightening to the average person? That we're not alone, or we're the only ones?
Yeah, I'd say the second.
That would be more exciting that we're not alone. We can't be alone. We're not alone. That's an exciting idea. It makes you think all kinds of really cool things.
Yeah, I spent a couple of significant trips down in Central America on some archaeological sites, and talking with the docents down there at some of the sites. They said they don't think the Mayas or the Aztecs or whatever built the pyramids down there. He said, because the pyramids aren't 2,000 years old. They're anywhere from 20,000 to 200,000 years old.
Yeah. And
they were built, by a civilization that no longer resides on this planet. And apparently there's been a number of major intelligent civilizations have been on this planet and that have ceased to exist. And every once in a while, we run into some of their remnants. I mean, the pyramids, the Sphinx, and probably a lot of the Central American and actually worldwide pyramids, because they all have a common theme.
Right.
Yeah. So
I have a question for you that's going back to your area of expertise. What is our most advanced aircraft publicly? How fast can it go? How high? And is there more advanced stuff that we don't know about? We don't
have an SR-71 flying anymore. We don't have anything today that has been made public that could fly at Mach 3.2. But Kelly Johns, I was at a banquet it was Engineering Week in Minneapolis at Honeywell, the Ridgeway division. They do all the military avionics stuff. Matter of fact, the autopilot, the inlet control system, the stabilization augmentation system, and a few other systems, all made by Honeywell. And that's what keeps the Blackbird in the sky, and same with the F-117. And I was a guest of the director of engineering. And he knew what my passions were for the Blackbird, and the keynote speaker was Kelly Johnson. So Kelly's up there. There's 800 engineers in there, and me. I'm in the back of the room. This is the Prom Center in St. Paul, Minnesota, and he's talking about various Blackbirds and stuff like that. Said, you're all familiar with our big ones, the CIA version, the A-12, the interceptor version, the YF-12, and the Air Force version, the SR-71. Said, but we can't talk about the little Blackbird, which is the D-21 drone, because at the time it was still classified higher than the Manhattan Project.
Wow.
And that was because we were building a drone to overfly the former Soviet Union in China.
Right.
We only ever overflew China. The biggest fear if we were to overfly the Soviet Union, would they think that as a rogue pilot launching a nuclear-tipped hound dog missile with a hydrogen bomb heading towards the Kremlin? So flying the D-21 drone over the Soviet Union was never decided it wasn't going to be an option. So my mind just went. I hate that. So Kelly's up there talking about. He says, today. Now this is either 82 or 83. He said, today we have the ability. Now this is 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago or 2 years ago, 40 years ago. He said, we have the ability today to build a Mach 4, Mach 6, Mach 8, Mach 12, or Mach 16 manned air-breathing platform.
Yep.
But speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? That's the D-21. The Chinese couldn't figure out what the heck this thing was as it's penetrating the airspace. They knew what the radar cross-section was on an A-12 ox cart, the single place CIA or bird. And they knew what the radar cross-section was on the SR-71, but they couldn't figure out what this was. And the question I had to ask the guy who had told me this, how do we know that the Chinese couldn't figure out what was overflying their airspace in the D-21? I said, how do you know what kind of radar and everything else they were using? And he just smiled at me and he says, we have our ways.
Yeah, one of them I can tell you outright. We got enough satellites in the sky worldwide. We have a neural net up there, and they have the ability to read newspapers on the ground. This is how they know. It's not a joke. I mean, people got to start thinking about the fact that they see everything. They don't need to fly a drone over unless they need topical. Like you can, during the war, Dobbins put up barriers so you couldn't see what was on the ground there. You couldn't tell what jets were on the ground.
Same at Burbank.
Yeah. And so you would have to fly a drone in there to see what the heck that is. And that's the only reason drones are needed, is because everybody's really good at hiding their stuff on the ground. But from space, if you see a plane or a jet in flight from space, you can tell what the heck it is. You could track it, and they do.
Well,
so is this one not manned? This is a drone then. This
is an unmanned. It's 52 feet long. It weighs about 9,000 pounds.
Yep.
It flies up to 100,000 feet and goes about 2,400 miles an hour. Yep. And it's powered by a ramjet. And it goes there. It's dead reckoning or time and distance. So it goes over it heads towards the target. It takes the pictures. It does a 180. It comes back. It's typically launched about 400 miles off the coast.
Yeah.
Now the first 4 launches were off a Blackbird, off the M21. They built 2 of them. On the 4th launch, and I'll get into how it crashed. There's only one survivor, and it's at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and it has a drone sitting on top of it.
Does it carry weapons? Tim Houston is asking.
It doesn't carry weapons, but you could put a nuke in the camera bay if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's not real maneuverable though, right? In other words,
it doesn't have to. It's flying at 100,000 feet at probably 4,000 feet per second.
Yeah.
So it's a mile and a half every 2 seconds. So you'd have to hit it, and you can't track
control over it.
Pardon?
They have radio signal on this thing all the way through while it's going that fast?
No, they had it on launch, and they had indicators of when it was coming back. Did the camera bay eject properly, and did the drone detonate? because they didn't want it to be recovered by anybody.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was a one use only. And I think they spent, it was $2 billion to develop the A-12 and the D-21 program. So it was really, even in today's money, it was a bargain. The F-35, for example, I saw the Iron Bird at Palmdale in 1989.
Wow.
89, 2009.
Dang.
I mean, it's been a long time, and the F-35 is still not fully mission capable. And I have a friend of mine who won't tell me what it can do, and I didn't ask him. I just say, don't ask, so I don't. He said,
what did they do with the 104 starfighters? What happened to that?
They aged out. It's still a beautiful airplane. You see one today. I mean, there's about a dozen of them privately owned that are flying.
When I was a kid, I lived in the Everglades growing up, and we had one go over the top of where we lived, and it was pretty low, and it blew the windows out of our house. It was like 800 feet, maybe 800 to 1,000, 1,200 feet, and we heard it coming, but it was so fast nobody could run outside. It was that fast, and it went boom, boom, and our windows just went.
Yeah,
it was amazing, Yeah,
those are just low observable cruise missiles we have right there, and they.
Right.
And if they're the loyal wingman, then the radar return is that of an F-117 or an F-22 or an F-35 or an F-37 or an F-40 or whatever. It will emulate something else. But the D-21 drone is just an incredible piece of equipment. But the program came to an end being launched from a Blackbird when on the fourth launch, which was the 30th of July, 1966, they had already had 3 successful launches. Now the drone, only one drone launch went the distance. The other ones, the drones were launched. They went 150 miles, something failed. Kelly Johnson said the D-21 tag board program was our most successful failure. Because they were using state-of-the-art airframe and power plant with 1940s electrics.
So all these drones that are flying over New Jersey, what do you think those are?
I think those are radiation sniffing drones. A large quantity or a significant quantity of medical radiological material has disappeared or was stolen. And enough to be used as a dirty bomb. So most of those drones I think all those drones that are flying over all these places are ours. And they're sniffing. And the ability to sense radioactive material long distances has been around for 50 years. I mean, in the mid 70s, first of all, the Soviets had it before we did. By 1975, that's 50 years ago, isn't it? Wow. we had equipment in specially modified P-3 Orions, probably the EP-3 Ares II type aircraft. And we have sensors in there. They could fly over a ship. They look down and they can tell you how much fissionable material is on that ship.
Wow.
And is it weapons grade? And if so, how much? But we also have the ability at choke points like the Straits of Hormuz and other areas where we can be on the ground with a sensor looking and seeing the ship, and we could determine what the quantity, quality, and the types of fissionable materials are. And that's been around for 50 years.
Well, most people don't realize this, but that technology went out into the public as well. When you go to a courthouse, it will sniff you for fissionable materials. You're going through a metal detector, you don't realize that they have way more technology going on in that area, and they can feel it. Airports as well. Anywhere that you go where sensitive materials are, any base, anywhere, they're constantly on guard about that. And most people don't even realize it, that's happening,
Yeah. So it's, all this is just I mean, we're dealing with stuff that could end humanity if we do it wrong.
Right.
But a friend of mine's dad had some radioactive seeds put in his prostate. He had prostate, problems, and he went to his doctor in New York, and he lived in southern New Jersey. He got pulled over on the New Jersey Turnpike. He was surrounded with weapons drawn.
Yep.
What's wrong? What's wrong? It says, we've detected something radioactive in your car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He said, that's me. He said, what do you mean that's you?
Yeah.
Said, I just had some radioactive seeds put in me earlier this morning for prostate.
I'm trying to go home, man. I had something like that. I had to have some put into my adrenal gland. And they warned me, go straight home, lock yourself in the room. People got to leave food outside your door for 3 days. You're highly radioactive. And he said, you've got 2 weeks before you can even go anywhere. For any reason whatsoever, you're going to set off alarms everywhere. And I did exactly what they said. It was 3 weeks, and I had to go to the courthouse for something. I worked at the county where I was living. And I walked in to go through the thing to get something done. And I said, I already set it off. Freaked me out. I was like, okay, dang,
Yeah. No, my wife has had 3 bouts with cancer, and it metastasized twice in her brain cavity.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And the second time that, actually her third bout with cancer, when they went in there, they put in the radioactive seeds. They're gamettides, I think is what the official name is. And so they dissolve within 3 to 5 days, and they're not radioactive after that.
They were crazy. I had an MRGB, which is a type of scan where they have to put it into the area where it's at. And it was like unbelievable amounts of radiation they were pumping into me. And I said, if I have what you think I have, what's this going to do to me? And he said, it'll probably cure it. And I went, what?
Or kill you.
Oh, no, take your pick. It's either going to go one way or the other. And I'm lucky because it probably cured it. I had a pheochromocytoma on my adrenal gland, and it kicked it. It got rid of it. But I spent 3 weeks of being radioactive. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah. So now we going to break right at the hour.
Yes.
Yeah, now's actually a good time. Thanks for bringing that up. I just want to take a quick station ID.
And I'm going to run and we'll get some more water. And as Arnold would say, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Right. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You are watching episode 88 of The Lightgate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran, and our guest tonight is James C. Goodall. He is the go-to guy on advanced aircraft, secret military aircraft. His opinion is one that we should definitely listen to because he's very, very educated about what's going on here.
Yeah.
And got your questions all start up. We will be asking him your questions shortly. Yep. But I do want to let you know that we are streaming on several platforms. We are streaming live on 107.7 FM radio from the United Paranormal Radio Network. Also, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM, both from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are on Rumble. We are on Roku. Check us out if you have Roku. We are, of course, on YouTube. We are on Facebook. So we're pretty much all over the place. If there's a platform, we're on there. Always trying to reach out to other platforms. We've talked to Jim about a lot of interesting things already. His childhood, how he got interested in all of this, the Blackbird, the drone situation. Still a lot more to cover. We do want to give a shout out to Carnation. Thank you for supporting us. Yes. We love you. It's truly appreciated. And yeah, I've already flashed on some of Jim's many books, over 24. So check those out if you get a chance. The links to some more of the information about that are in the show description. So check that out as well. And yeah, we got lots of questions for you in chat, Jim.
Yes. I have a burning question. I definitely have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Lear, Did he ever talk to you about his researching things and what was his most interesting revelations about ET and sighting craft and stuff like that?
Who is that referring to?
Lear.
Yeah. I knew Lear for about 45 years, and I'm one of the very few people, according to his daughter, that I sort of fit in. He has a bunch of compartmental friends here and here and here, here, and I sort of floated between all of them. John knew people that had been abducted. And one of the things he did when he was the check airman and the senior captain for American Transair, ATA. They're out of Indianapolis, and he would track down someone that had said they had been abducted. He would make an arrangement to have them hypnotized. He would go to the state board of hypnotists. He would get hold of someone in that particular city that specializes in deep, real deep hypnosis. And he had 15 people that he went and had this done to, and it was all in his nickel. And he would, if there was any costs involved, getting the patient or the person to wherever he's going to be hypnotized, that was all covered by John. Wow. And he said, out of the 15 people, and none of them had anything higher than ambient temperature IQs. I mean, there were no Einsteins in the group, but just average people. I mean, they were just average people. None of them had any connection with each other. They were all over the country, and 13 of the 15, the stories were almost exactly the same. Two of them, John said they were more full of poop than a Christmas turkey. I mean, he could tell right off that one, they weren't going under, and two, what they were saying was malarkey, baloney. So John had a real strong feeling, and there was a journalist in Houston. I don't know if it was a newspaper or TV. I got a burr in his butt. He decided he was going to attack John Lear for promoting ufology, and talking about it. And he contacted John's boss, the president of American Transair, and he said, "Your senior captain is a nut job, and he's talking about UFOs and everything else. And I don't think that's right. And I'm going to, if he doesn't stop, I'm going to tell the world that your senior captain and your check airman for American Transair is a nutcase. He believes in little green men and flying saucers." So the president called him in. And he said, "John, you just tell me that, okay, you're not going to do it anymore, and it dies right here." And John says, "I can't do that." So he put his money where his mouth was, and he lost his job. He was making $400,000 a year, and he walked away from it because it went against his core principles. Now his then wife they were married 51 years when she divorced him. And I don't know if she's still alive. John passed away almost 3 years ago now. But John was, he was on a flight somewhere, and he came home, and you'd have to have seen John's office, if you want to call it that. There was no more room. It was a 20 by 20 room. You couldn't put any more stuff in there. There wasn't any more room on the walls. He had 8 monitors up above his desk where he monitored all around the property because they had.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Thank you.
He came home, and all his filing cabinets were gone. There was everything in the room was gone. Merely had put him into a storage facility. Wouldn't tell him where what storage facility and said, I've changed the numbers too. You don't have your same number anymore. This is before cell phones that were really popular. So I said, you can only give people that I approve your number. And I was one of them. I mean, it was, he walked away from a $400,000 a year job.
That's awful. Did he ever talk to you about, I know that he went out to debunk in 2000, it was 2007, 2008, 2009, Turkey, a craft that was coming down then. And he went out there to debunk it with some other people. And did he ever talk to you about that?
No, well, that was Dr. Roger Lear.
Oh, Roger Lear. Okay.
Yeah,
I was confused. Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I'd known that. Okay.
Yeah. No, but John Lear was, he was the first person I ever heard talk about your deep underground military facilities.
Yeah.
The DUMBs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with
that. We have the technology. You know, one of the things that a lot of people say, well, where's S4? Well, S4 is underground.
Yes.
It's in the side of the Papoose Range. And there was a gentleman, he was a Mormon. He was a Mormon historian. He was mapping out the path of the lost Mormon tribe.
Really?
And he could get to the pretty much the border of Area 51, and they would not let him in. They wouldn't let him in the Nevada test site. Mm-hmm. So he decided he was going to come from the other area. Now, he wasn't a UFO guy. He wasn't an alien guy. He was a religious theological student doing research on the lost tribe. And he decided to sneak into the Nevada test site from the Mercury side. Ooh. And he'd gotten in. He was in there for a couple of days, and he'd do most of his walking at night and undercover during the day, especially if it's warm. Even in the winter, you can get really cooked out in the desert because the sun is so intense. Even if it's low in the sky, it's still intense. And he was one night when he was there on his trek. He's underneath an overhang, and he had his little camp area all fixed out. And he got up to go water a plant or some cactus, and he sees it looks like a garage door is opening on the base of a mountain, about 10 or 15 miles away. And he couldn't see what was happening, but he could see it actually getting lighter and lighter. This thing was open, and then it closed down. But it was real bright, and you can tell there was activity there, but he didn't see anything fly. He didn't say he heard anything. Well, the next day, he decided, he got his binoculars out, and he said, I want to see what's there. So he took his binoculars out, and there was nothing there. There's Papoose Lake, dry lake bed, mountain comes down. That's it. There's no entrance. There's nothing. What the hell did that happen? So fast forward to the mid 80s. I got a buddy of mine who was one of the original guys working on the F-117. This is when he was still being flight tested at Area 51. And this is right after Bob Ridenour had crashed the prototype, actually the first operational F-117. The pitch and yaw outputs on the flight recorder were reversed. So when you had pitch, you had yaw. When you had yaw, you had pitch. And he went up, cartwheeled, literally went over there, tore the wing off, bounced off the top, came down on its belly. And he almost lost both his legs. He almost lost his legs. Yeah. But there was a stand down for everything. So my buddy and two of his buddies, and they're desert utilities. Their security badge is good for the entire Nevada test site and everything in it. And they're looking for artifacts from the old mining days, because there was a mine there, the Groom Range and whatever. So they're just looking for bottles and stuff, and they're just sort of kicking around the dry lake bed. And this is on Papoose Lake, the dry lake bed. And out of nowhere came he didn't say 5, 10, 15, or he said a handful of black-clad Americans with weapons wanting to know, what are you doing here? Let me see some ID. He said, you guys don't belong on this side of the mountain, because Area 51's just on the other side of the Papoose Range. He says, you guys get out of here. You're not welcome here. There was no vehicle. He couldn't find a vehicle where they came from. There was nowhere where they, all of a sudden they appeared. Now we've gotten really good at camouflaging. So the hangar doors and the exterior doors are camouflaged. We've had the ability since the 60s to drill a 36-foot diameter hole through solid granite at about a foot an hour. All the boring machines, they go down 1,800 feet when they were doing underground detonations. And when they built Yucca Mountain, they had all that equipment there. So the equipment exists there in the neighborhood. But the problem with it, for Area 50, or actually for S4 to be an underground facility, what did they do with the debris clearing it out? That's a question, and no one seems to have an answer. And where's the entrance? Because there has to be an entrance somewhere. So there's a road that goes, probably a paved road.
Yeah, you can ask US Gypsum that question. They might be able to answer you.
Yeah. So
here's an F-117, right?
Yeah. Now I had a friend of mine. He was a Blackbird pilot, and we came close. We talked on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And my dad was director of engineering at Arnold Air Force Station there in Tullahoma. And my buddy, Dave Fruhoff, was a retired lieutenant colonel. He retired in Lynchburg, Tennessee, which is only 11 miles from Tullahoma. So I'm visiting my dad, and I call him up. Hey, Dave, I said, I'm in the neighborhood. Can I come by and give you a visit? He said, sure, come on down. And I wanted to talk to him about him crashing a Blackbird. He actually had to bail out of one. And after we got through that, I asked him, I said, do you believe in UFOs? And I figured he would sort of back off and say, and not do anything. I said, yeah, I believe in them. They're real. I said, you want to expand upon that? And I'm used to Air Force guys saying, no, I'm not. I don't want to expand upon it. So I said, yeah, I'll expand upon it. He said it was late 72, early 73. He was operating out of Kadena, Okinawa. It was a night mission. He's just returning from overflying, I think it was North Korea or close to it, or North Vietnam, one of the two. He didn't say what the target was, but he was on his way back. He's at 78,000 feet. It's about 11 p.m. at night. He's flying at Mach 2.7, which is sort of a sweet spot going to and from. It also reduces the thermal load on the airframe and all its subsystems by a whole bunch. Just that dropping down from 3.2 to 2.7 is a huge difference as far as the thermal stress on the airframe. And it's a 3/4 moon. The moon is over on the port side of the airplane. He's going straight. It's 11 o'clock at night. And off to his right, said about 5 or 6 miles off to his right, and 6,000 or 7,000 feet above him was something that was reflective. It had edges to it. It wasn't a smooth saucer type thing. He had edges for it. Now, he didn't want to open his visor because he was getting some glints from the cockpit instruments. He was trying to see where the stars are blocked out, so he had a shape. But he didn't want to open his visor because Murphy's Law says as soon as you do that, you're going to have the windscreen blow out and you're a dead man. So he contacts Cadena on secure voice. He said, we got another bird up. And he said, no, you were at the briefing. You're the only one up there. And he says, no, I got company. I'm going to go take a look. So he now at Mach 2.7, at 78,000 feet, he's in absolute minimum afterburner.
Wow.
So he advances the throttle because the airplane wants to fly fast. And the red line is within about 5 knots of the maximum speed that they will allow is within 5 knots of being redlined. You can't go any further.
Right.
So he advances the throttle. It's about a 10-degree bank, and he's climbing, and he's heading towards it. When he figured he was still 1,000 or so feet below this object, and it's pretty good size, but he couldn't get how physical it was, other than he's getting the glints. And he's still about a mile or so away. This thing took off at about a 30-degree angle of attack and left him in the dust. He said he lost sight of it between 180 and 200,000 feet is what he figured.
What
So
month?
December or January.
Which is faster than anything we have officially.
Absolutely. So in 1974 or 1975, he retires from the Air Force because he has a Q clearance and he flew exotic airplanes, the Blackbird. He got a job as facility manager at Area 51. He was responsible for every single structure from a paint locker to the biggest hangar. And he was responsible for all non-program aircraft maintenance. So all the chase planes and everything. He flew chase for Have Blue. He flew chase for F-117 and other stuff. And he said, you don't go to in a classified environment and just start talking, asking questions, because they'll pull your clearance. They won't do anything to you. Approve your clearance. Say, well, you can't work here. We don't have a clearance, and you're screwed. So after about a year, he was talking to a buddy of mine, and he knew everybody when he got there. I mean, he was familiar with everybody because there were a lot of Lockheed people there, and he knew Northrop people and Boeing people. And so after about a year, they're at the club in the evening, and he asked a couple of guys that had been there forever. He said, "Did we ever fly anything or flight test anything out here that go Mach 8, Mach 12?" And they all said, "Not here." So I said, "Well, what about the underground facilities?" I said, "Well, if there were underground facilities at Area 51, that would have been my responsibility." And that's when he told me that there are underground facilities in the general vicinity because we have the ability. The biggest example would be the low grade radiation storage facility, what they call Yucca Mountain, which they cost $13 billion, and Harry decided no, we can't have that radiation stuff there. Now, 1,500 feet below some of these mushroom type craters, there's probably a good 1.5 tons of plutonium and other very radioactive stuff. So he said, no, but I have a firm believer. He said, they're here. And he says, and I've chased one. And he left me in the dust. And then after I made that public, he denied the fact that he had done what he did.
Wow.
And he was told, hey, you can't talk about that stuff. It's keep it under hand. And why to me, there's no justification for keeping alien technology classified, because if we have captured and picked up crashed alien craft, I'm sure the Chinese and the Russians have as well. They have a larger land mass than we have.
Yep, you're right.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
The only thing they're keeping the alien technology away from is you and I, the people who pay their
money to read back in here. Yep.
Yeah, and that part pisses me off. We have the right to know. Now, one of the theories behind not wanting to let the world know that UFOs were real and were being visited or had been visited since time began, is one of the glues that keeps the world together is a firm belief in a supreme being, be it God, Buddha, Muhammad, Adam Smith, Jesus, you name it. Yeah. And the one thing that keeps decent people from becoming mass murderers or doing something that you want to do is not the fact of getting caught, but they don't want to go to hell. If all of a sudden the one thing that has kept them together without, well, I'm going to go. My neighbor dissed me. I don't care if I go to jail. There's no such thing as hell. I'm just going to shoot the son of a gun. Said that's one of the reasons, because of all of a sudden all the religious entities that people look at and pray to, if all those, it's a big puppy you have, by the way, Preston. Yeah,
145 pounds.
Yeah, my big German Shepherd weighed 130, but he's been gone for a long time. He's purebred, gorgeous dog.
She's 145.
Oh wow,
a great name.
Yeah. Then you have to go out in the yard with a front loader.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, all right, I lost track where the heck I was at.
Well, you're talking about how religion has held us all pretty much in check, and that the idea of UFOs might totally destroy.
One of the reasons behind.
Yeah,
they're keeping it secret.
And Tim Burchett from Tennessee, I think is the second congressional district. He said he's seen some stuff, and he said the world isn't ready to see what I've seen. And he's a real strong proponent for not necessarily disclosure, but exposure to this. But he's had some opportunities to see some of the stuff that we can't see.
Right.
But I think it's getting closer and closer to a disclosure.
I really wish. I
sure hope so. I think we're going to get steps towards it, but I don't think we'll ever get full truth. They're not going to show us the Roswell craft. I don't think they ever will.
Well,
it exists.
Now I'm gonna jump over to Bob Lazar.
All right.
Bob is working with Luigi Vinatelli out of Montreal. They're working. It was supposed to be ready by Christmas, but apparently they have found some new technology that makes it even more gee whiz.
Yeah.
And Bob said it even gave him goosebumps, some of the snippets he saw. But the Bob Lazar, the original whistleblower documentary should be out soon. But there's 3 parts to Bob's disclosure. And one of them he hinted at, he said, once the documentary comes out, said, we are going to do something that if it works, it will blow the socks off of everybody. I said, do you have enough 115? And he smiled. He says, yeah, but not just in one location.
Oh, good for him. Yeah.
Wow.
But he has it. He has enough. And he also has a photographic memory. So what he was working on and any documentation he read, anybody that had documented what they did beforehand, he has all that. And I think what they're going to do, and again, this is just, I'm just trying to pull some nuggets out of the ionosphere, is he said, he sort of indicated that he's going to show something like a sports model fly.
I sure hope so, because it's time.
More power to
him.
And one of my dearest friends is Michael Schratt.
We love Michael.
Yeah, and Michael worked directly for Dr. Greer for almost a year and a half, and they have, I have those big barks too.
Yeah, we've had some activity around the property lately, and I think we may have an agent wandering around out there right now. And our dog is
That or a bear or something.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
yeah, I love our dog. She's a rescue.
Yeah.
She's as loving as any dog I've ever had. But Tim Burchett said what he saw, the world isn't ready for. There were a couple other people who were in the know. One of the things today on X, I can't remember who stated it, but they are, they want to, President Trump wants to release everything on UFOs. UFOs, JFK's assassination, and 9/11.
Wow.
And, all three. And
that was connected. Yep.
Yeah, they are connected. Absolutely connected.
Yeah,
Wow.
one of the people that is going to have head up a government agency to investigate this is Lou. What the hell his last name is?
Elizondo.
Yeah.
Elizondo. Yeah, and they should pick someone other than him because I think he's just a talking head mouthpiece for him, a disinformation specialist.
Thank you. I agree.
If they wanted to do it right, hire Michael Schratt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No one does
Michael.
better. And when Michael gives a presentation, there is absolutely no opinions of Michael Schratt in that presentation.
Correct.
He's like Sergeant Friday from Dragnet.
We've had him on 3 times now, and he is like Sergeant Friday from Dragnet. Yep.
He's like my kid. He's like my kid. Now I was with him with Terry Beckwith out of Perth. Michael were on his show, was it 2 weeks ago? And he gave a presentation. It was just Michael and I. Terry just sat back and listened. He said it was the easiest show ever. So we went on for 2 hours, and Michael then had to leave. Mm-hmm. And we didn't cover half of what he was presenting. So right after the first of the year, we're going to go back on with Terry and go to the other next 2 hours. And it could be another 2 hours after that of just Michael and I,
cool.
battering back and forth.
Absolutely cool.
And I said, I think the world of Michael,
if you'd like, we'd love to have you both back on the show together. How's that?
Well, that would be great.
All right.
You guys wouldn't have to say a thing. We just give a presentation and Michael and I can talk for 2 hours.
Absolutely. We'll turn it over. I'm not kidding.
So I'd love to pop up some questions from chat because
sure.
Some of these are pretty interesting. And Brian Rue is asking, how far has man-made tech taken us? So I guess he's asking,
at least to the moon and back.
Right?
Sun. We have something outside the sun right now that's really, really incredible. And you have to remember that Voyager has already escaped our Kuiper belts and everything. It's out in deep space, and they're still talking, both of them. So yeah we've gone pretty far.
And it's transmitting on 1.5 watts.
Yes, that's the cool part. Yeah,
the fact that that 13 billion miles away, they can still hear it. And they've sent some updates to reconfigure some stuff.
Right.
I mean, they're dealing with 4-bit technology. I mean, you have more memory in your toilet roll.
Right.
Than
right. They were worried
has.
about losing power too, and the daggone things are still pulling power into them. There's enough light out there that they're still charging, which is incredible, along with their nuclear parts. So it's amazing. I mean, everybody's on the edge of their seat to see how far they're going to go with that.
Do you think our military has a hold of anti-gravity tech?
I'd have to say yes. There's, all the strange craft that is flying that it's a TR-3B. Well, it has little red and green lights on the tips.
Right.
Oh, it's flying in FAA controlled airspace, and that these are required. If it was an alien craft, they would say, "No, I'm sorry, we're not putting those silly Christmas tree lights on our flying saucer."
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I have a question for you, real quick. Have you ever seen one? When I was living just outside of, I was living in Panama City, outside of Tyndall, and I was outside one day. It was late at night, like 10, 11 o'clock, and the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I looked straight up, and it was not a TR-3B. It was more rectangular, and it was stealthy, and it was going about 45 miles an hour, and it slowed down over our house. Okay. And I'm looking at it, and then it did a ripple array across the bottom of it, just like, I'm showing you who I am, baby. And I knew it was not ET.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, well. And I went, move on, okay? And it kept going. But
Well, the Gulf Breeze UFO that was photographed using Polaroid.
yeah.
You cannot fake a Polaroid image. It only because there's no negative. It what the lens sees and what you pull out, that's what's there, and it's real fine grain.
Right.
And he had a chance to look at the Gulf Breeze UFO. Now his job in the Air Force, he was a KH-11 SR-71 U-2 photo analysis at SAC. And he's looking. I mean, he went. Yeah, he had 2 years of formal training on photo interpretation. He looked through that every which way he could. He said, "There's no way this is faked. This is real." And this is before cell phones and whatever. This is the late '60s, early '70s, or whenever it was.
Yeah.
And the technology that we take for granted today didn't exist then. And then he also looked at the faces on Mars, that one face, and using all this, everything that Uncle Sam trained him on, and he was trained at Lowry Air Force Base. That's where the school was.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lowry, and this is why, so I don't forget, you were talking about that we could read a
Newspaper.
book. Yeah, newspapers. In 1962, long time ago, at the photo school, I had some work to do in there. I was stationed at Lowry. I had a top secret clearance, but everything that was in the hallway was not classified. You needed at least a secret to get into the building.
Yeah.
So I'm walking down the hallway, and they have all sorts of exhibits of photo analysis. And there's one. It's taken from one of the first photo capsule ejection satellites. So it may have been 63 instead of 62. But it was one frame, and you can tell it's taken over Moscow. You can see the Moscow River. You can barely make out Red Square, barely make out the Kremlin and building. That's it. This is all off the same negative. The next one, it's a shot of Red Square. You can see cars, you can see people, but you can't make if it's a truck or a pickup or what, and you can't tell if they're men or women. But you can see the little dots. The next one, the third frame, is you can tell what kind of vehicle is it. Is it a Jeep? Is it a truck? Is it a private automobile?
Yeah.
Fourth frame, you can see a guy sitting on a bench there at Red Square, and he's reading a newspaper. And you can't see, all you can just see the guy, and he's reading a newspaper. And the fifth one, it's zoomed down to the headlines, which was probably an 8-inch headline. Yep.
And it's legible. Yep.
This is 1964, and it was unclassified.
Right.
So it's probably a lot better than that now.
When the first space shuttle went up, they didn't know if they had any damaged tiles.
Right.
So they didn't have the ability to do an EV out there because it was too early in the program. So the Air Force said, "You have to take our word for it, but trust me, you have all the tiles, all the black tiles on the bottom of the space shuttle.
A huge area of them are gone. Yeah.
No. There's a few. They were talking about the chips and and some of the cracks in them. Said, but it's nothing to be concerned about. And it came in, and he said, "Well, how do you know?" He said, "You have to take our word for it that we know."
Trust us.
They looked from ground up.
Yeah.
And could look at the bottom and could determine a crack or a piece that's chipped out the size of a dime.
Right. It still hurt that craft that could never go up again. They would have had to rip the entire bottom of it out and totally replace it with better technology, and they left it alone after that. My dad worked for NASA. I know about it. Yeah. And it was a serious situation they had because they could have died coming in. Absolutely could have died.
Now I have a space shuttle event that affected me directly. On January 28th, 1986, I was at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I was under anesthesia for 11 hours undergoing brain surgery. I had a brain tumor about the size of a golf ball in the middle of my head. If you go right in here and right here, when those 2 points converged was the center of the tumor.
Okay.
On my auditory nerve, and it was pushed and wrapped around my facial nerve and pushing up against the stem of my brain. And my chances of survival were less than 5%. So it took me 36 hours to come to terms that I was 40 years old. I was going to die and not see my kids grow up and whatever. But it took me 36 hours before it to hit me. And then when it hit me, I was a puddle for about 6 hours. I mean, I had to ball my head off. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like someone changed channels. And all of a sudden, I got a peace come over me, and I said to myself, "This is the end. I have no regrets."
Right.
But if I survive, I have to be happy. My first wife and I, we buried 2 children.
Oh.
The marriage couldn't survive that, and I had to be happy. I mean, I still love my first wife, but like my sister. We were married 20 years. We've been divorced 30. And I came to terms. So when I'm at Mayo Clinic, this is the morning of January 28th. Dr. Harner, who was my ENT doctor, and Dr. Eversol was the neurosurgeon. Dr. Harner's checking my vitals. And my pulse was 52. My blood pressure was 105/65. He said, "Jim," says, "you're not very nervous." I said, "Doc, I'm at Mayo Clinic. If you can't fix me, no one can. And if you F up, I'll never know it. Just give it your best shot." And he starts laughing. He said, "That is the best attitude to go into this type of surgery," because he said, brain surgery, attitude going in is about 40% of coming out. Wow. And I had less than a 5% chance of surviving. And if I survived surgery, I had a 70% chance of having facial paralysis, blindness, and seizures. I went dancing 13 days after 9.5 hours of surgery. 134 stitches inside and outside of my head and my skull. I didn't do much moving. I was out there with a cane, but I lost half my balance. I can't get out of it. I can't get out of a chair and turn. I can't pass a drunk test. I can't close my eyes and stand on one foot. I can hardly close my eyes and stand on both feet. I can't. If I climb up something, I have to hold on something when I look up, else I'll fall over.
Wow.
It's something I lived with for 39 years. But that was the first thing my wife, I mean, as they gave me the sodium pentothal to put me under, my response was, "Holy," and excuse me. And when I came out, I hadn't sent a word. I had, I felt like there was somebody dumped a dump truck full of gravel down.
Yeah.
And I could hear my wife talking. "I need to tell him it's really important." I said, "Well, I don't see where it's so important, but go ahead and tell him." Now I had 138 stitches in the back of my head, stitches, a 2.5-inch hole in the base of my skull, and I was under for 11 hours. she came over and said, Challenger blew up on takeoff this morning. And I sat straight up at my bed and said, holy shit, that was the last words and the first words out of my mouth. Did an SRB blow up? So I knew my brain was working.
Yeah.
So I ended up, a friend of mine was doing some research for a freezer company, and he got a whole bunch of shuttle tiles to see if they could use that same type of technology to keep things really, really cold. So I had 2 black tiles and 3 white tiles that were pulled off of Challenger early on. They had never been to space, to my knowledge.
Dolly, look at you.
But they were doing a pull test. They were doing a pull test, and I got them.
Wow. We had one too. We actually had a tile, and I gave it to somebody. And I wish I'd never done that, but I did. Yeah. When the Challenger happened, I was working with my cousin as a favor to her, and they knew that my dad was NASA, and they knew that I wanted to watch this takeoff, and they said, "How about we bring a TV in with you, and you can watch it live as it's happening?" And I said, "Okay." And we're sitting there, and I've got headsets on because we're answering phones for these people. And when it went up, my cousin saw me pull my headset off because I knew exactly what was wrong. Instantly, I knew. Okay. And I threw myself back in the chair, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I can't talk." And I got up and I went into their kitchen, and I started bawling my guts out because it was bad. Okay. And I said, "I need to call my father, and I need to call my father right now." Well, we didn't have cell phones in those days. You know that. I had one number. I might get him on one. He never answered. We didn't hear from him for 24 hours after that happened. We knew people on both sides of the story here. We knew people who were working on the booster rockets. We knew one who was in Sweden on the O-rings, okay, related family stuff, all right? And they knew, instantly knew. They didn't tell the public. This is one of the times where they lied. Absolutely kept everybody dark because they knew it was the O-ring. They knew it. They had it on film. They saw it happen. And my dad couldn't talk to anybody. He was that mad. And so were the people with the O-ring too, because it wasn't their responsibility was to stop them that day that had gone past limits. And some yoo-hoo went, "We're going."
They said they couldn't certify that the seals will hold if it was 31 degrees for
exactly
2.5 or 3 consecutive hours. And it was down in the 20s for over 12 hours, 12 or 15 hours.
It was horrible. It never should have launched. They should have scrubbed the launch and waited for another day, and they didn't do it.
And the same thing on Apollo 13. My dad was there when it was hit by lightning, and he, "Oh no, it'd be okay." No. You don't get something that has the lives of 3 people involved. I don't care if you're sitting on at the time the world's largest rocket. If it's hit by lightning and does some weird stuff on some of the telemetry stuff, you stop, you go through, you cancel it.
Right.
But people are losing their interest in space flight. So we don't want it. This is a PR thing. So what it do? It allowed us to blow up Apollo 13.
Yep.
And I got out of a speeding ticket because of Apollo 13.
Really? Oh, wow.
I had a 67 Camaro SSRS. I had a big block. I had a 396. It was about 500 horsepower. And I was working for Xerox in downtown Seattle, and I was just getting on I-5 on 85th, heading into downtown Seattle. They announced on the radio that Apollo 13 has successfully hit the water. The crew's alive, and I just floored it. And I'm going down I-5, and I was doing probably about 130, 140. All of a sudden, I see state patrol behind me. Because he was behind me as I was coming down the on-ramp, and all of a sudden I just got on it. And he got on it. And he said, "You better have a good explanation why you did what you did." I said, "Didn't you hear? The guys from Apollo 13 are made it back okay." And he said, "That qualifies." Keep it under Mach 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're running out of time. I want to pop up a few more questions before it gets
Okay.
too late, because this is an interesting one from Fab22. Any thoughts on the Foo Fighters witnessed by the Air Force
Well, I
in the
mean,
40s?
there's been UFOs flying around here since time began. You look at the hieroglyphics on in Egypt. You look on some of the petroglyphs, in the Indian communities around southern Arizona and New Mexico. You
So
look
think
at
those were
stuff
probably ET then, not
Yep.
military?
Yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, they've been coming since time began.
Right.
For all we
We're
know,
time. Yeah,
for all they know, they put us here.
they did. Yep. We're their children. We are their progeny. Absolutely are. You know, we were on Mars a long time ago too, until Mars got kicked out of the hat. The Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
What about Ben Rich and his claims?
Okay. Ben Rich was a dear friend of mine. We spoke once a quarter for about 25 years. I get more closer to 20 years. And he's the reason we got a Blackbird in Minneapolis, because he called me at home and said, hey, the Blackbirds aren't going to make it through Congress. If anyone can scrounge one, you can. So I did. But just before he died, I called Ben. He was at USC Medical Center. He was dying of esophageal cancer. And we were just reminiscing. We were talking about a mutual dear friend, John Andrews from Testers, because John's the reason why I got linked in with Ben. And he said, Jim, we have things out in the desert that's 50 years beyond what you can comprehend. I mean, he's referring to me, not some yahoo at Kmart or Walmart or whatever. He's referring to me. Yeah. I can comprehend a hell of a lot. He said, and if you've seen movies like Star Trek or Star Wars, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. I said, Ben, you want to expand upon that? And typical Ben Rich, he said, no. But if he hadn't died when he died, because it wasn't something he had planned on, he had agreed to do an interview with me, no holds barred. He was gonna tell me everything, but he ended up dying beforehand.
Wow.
And in 1993 and 94, he retired right after right at the end of Desert Storm, when the first bombs were dropped by his baby, the F-117. He retired in January of 91. And in 93 or 94, he was a keynote speaker at the Aeronautical Graduate School at UCLA, talking to aeronautical engineers. And one of the things in it, and it was in his prepared text, and it's a statement when you think about it, you really got to scratch your head. That's a hell of a statement. He said, and this is 40 years ago, not last week, 40 years ago. We have today the technology to take ET home.
That's what he said, yep.
Listen to, that statement. We have the ability to take ET home 40 years ago. I guess it was about 40 years ago. That's a long way. And one thing I did do now, if you go back to the one where I'm there with Jeff Babion and there's a skunk in the background.
Oh, all right. Let's see if I can find that one. Oh.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Yep. One more, couple more.
There, no, keep going.
No, that's not it. Hold on.
No.
Oh, that's you. Wow.
That's me. That's my daily driver.
I like that. Yeah.
I've had it to 140.
Little alien. I've been there. Okay, that's another picture. Is this it?
That's Jeff Babion has the glasses on. I'm standing above the X-59. This is this is the 3rd of June, 2021. I did a book signing at the Skunk Works.
Wow.
We were heading over to the U-2 operation on the other side of Air Force Plant 42, and I looked Jeff right in the eye, and I said, all right, Jeff, how much alien technology is being utilized in Skunk Works projects? And he looked at me. He answered almost instantly, and he said, I have absolutely no knowledge of alien technology being used in Skunk Works programs. But that doesn't mean, now this is to continue his conversation. He said, but that doesn't mean that something wasn't developed before I got here.
Yeah.
And it's above my pay grade. It says, in my job, that's for my tourist space. That's what I'm referring to. And he said,
There it is.
There it is. And I'm the only non-Skunk Works guy ever to get that.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because we just have a few minutes left.
Yeah. But I asked him, I said, there any technology? And he said, no. I said, but it doesn't mean that that stuff wasn't developed before I got here. But my job is to look to the future. If I want to look to the past, I'll get your book.
Yeah.
So his two favorite books in the whole wide world are my SR-71 book from Sheffer and my 75 Years of the Lockheed Skunk Works. He said, those are two books in my man cave that no one's allowed to touch without my permission.
Awesome.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, guys, check out the books.
And if you want it, the 6 books above, those are all hardbound. The least expensive one is my B2 book, and you can get them on Amazon. If you go into Amazon and punch in the name James, middle initials C, Goodall, just like it's sound, books by James C. Goodall, you'll come up with a good amount of my 29 books that are in print. Now the Skunk Works book, 75 Years of Skunk Works book, retails for $70. It's in its 5th printing.
Wow.
My goodness. Yeah.
Nice. My Blackbird book, it sells a couple thousand every 6 months.
You should be in all the schools across the country, all of them.
Well, what cracked me up on my B2 book, which is both my Skunk Works book and my B2 book were reprinted in Chinese.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
I mean, they paid Sheffer Publishing to do 2,000 books in Chinese on the B2, and they did the same thing with Osprey on 2,000 books.
Very cool. Schiffer Books has published my books too. That's very cool.
Yeah. No, I knew Paul Sheffer, Pete's dad. I think is it Paul or Pete? Or Pete, he's the guy today, but the guy who started Osprey, I've known him since the early 70s. And I've been to their facility once. Once. It's in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. It's at Glen, Pennsylvania. And it's just a beautiful countryside. And your books never go out of print. A buddy of mine had some stuff on small air forces, South American, Central American air forces. All of a sudden, he got a royalty check, for $4. Someone had bought 3 books or 4 books or whatever, and he hadn't seen a royalty check in 25 years.
Wow.
Because they said their books never go out of print. They will keep them forever. They have 6,500 titles there at Ackland that they could ship out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really quite a place.
Well, I wish we had another hour, but we're actually out of time. So
yeah. Well, I've enjoyed it, and by all means,
I want you to hang out with us after we close the show down. I want to get you on the board so that we can put you and Michael together with us. Okay, so hang on after the show, and we'll work things out.
yeah, but
thank you so much. You can tell Michael I agreed.
We'll do that.
That's all you need. That's all.
Thanks, Jim. That was amazing. People in chat loved you. Sorry, guys, we couldn't get to all your questions.
Yeah,
but we'll definitely.
As Arnold would say, I'll be back.
I love that. I really do.
Thank you guys for all the super chats. Namaste, Bob. Truly appreciate it. Yahira, Sunny, you guys, it means a lot. It definitely helps us to continue doing what we do here. Thank you all for watching us. We really had a great time. We will definitely be bringing Jim back. Amazing, Jim. Amazing. I hope everyone knows what you're about.
I was real worried with all the computer problems I was having. I was getting no throughput on my router, and I called Affinity, and for an hour I was on with the people doing this, doing that. Finally got it working about 20 minutes before we were supposed to go on the air.
Thank you, Comcast. Thank you, Xfinity, for getting back on. Thank you.
And I enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm more than happy to come back again. And if there's anybody out there who has a podcast, if you want, if you would like me on, I'm retired. I don't do a lot of things. I can't leave the house very much now.
Yeah.
My wife has early onset Alzheimer's, so I have to be really close.
Oh,
so
bless her.
If you want me on your show, let me know. If it fits into my schedule, I have no problems. I don't have any requirements. I don't care if you and I are the only people, talking, or if you have 1 million listeners. So,
we don't have 1 million, but we've got about
we
a half
got a
million.
network out there. We got a network producer who's probably going to lose her mind tonight knowing that. So just say it.
Okay.
All right.
But I enjoyed it, and it was it's been fun, and there's I'll do it again.
Awesomeness. Okay, stay with us. Don't hang up.
I won't.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, James C. Goodall, for being on our show tonight. I am more than ecstatic, and I thank you very much. We're very honored to have had you come on and speak. It is important for everybody to hear what you have to say. Everyone, we came to you this Monday night from the United Public Radio Network in New Orleans in Louisiana at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We're on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, we are on YouTube, and we just love y'all. Thank you, everyone in chat. Thank you. We will see you in the new year. Happy New Year. Everybody, please be safe. Remember, it's good to stay home and watch it on TV. And if you can't do that, if you got to go out and be young and silly, don't drink and drive. We love you. Good night, everybody.